Welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. And I want to start today the way I rarely start, with a question, not a rhetorical question, a real one, the kind that I want you to actually sit inside before you answer it. When it was the last time someone asked you how you were doing and you told them the truth? Not the managed version, not the I'm good, I'm busy, things are moving forward version that you have gotten so practiced of delivering that when it comes out before you even check with yourself to find out if it really is actually the truth, the real answer, the one that it leaves underneath the productivity, the output, the content calendar, and the client sessions and the family responsibilities. In the community, you are holding the vision, you are building, and the woman you are committed to becoming. The one that it says, I'm tired in a way that sleep does not fix. I am full of purpose and empathy of resource at the same time. I'm giving everything I have to the people around me and somehow never feeling like it's enough and somehow never having anything left for myself. Waking up tomorrow and doing it all over again because that is what I do. That answer. When do you last tell someone that answer? Because I think for the women in this community, the coaches, the healers, the leaders, the entrepreneurs who build businesses out of their own transformation, who turn their wounds into their work, into their history, into their calling, that answer has been very underneath a lot of other people's answer for a very, very long time. You are the one who holds that space, the one that it shows up, the one that doesn't fall apart even when everything around does. The one that who knows what to say, the one who stays present when the pain in the room is too much for anyone else to sit inside without flinching. You are the strong one. And the strong one does not get to have that answer because the strong one's job is to hold the container, not to need one. And so the answer stays buried and the weight keeps accumulating. And the tiredness gets coded as just being busy, being in a hard season, just needing a better morning routine or a productivity system or another retreat where you pour out everything you have for 3 days and come home more depleted than you have left and nothing changes. Because the problem is not your schedule, it's not your systems, it's not your capacity. Because your capacity, woman, is extraordinary. The problem is that you have been operating in an emotional container for the entire ecosystem of people while simultaneously trying to build something that it requires you to be full. And you cannot pour from an empty vessel. And you cannot fill the vessel when you spend every waking hour making sure everyone else's vessel is full first. That cycle, that identity level cycle, is what we are going to take apart today from the root, not the surface, not the schedule, not the boundary scripts and the limited setting language and the polite ways of ending conversations that every business coach will tell you to script out and practice in the mirror. The root. Because the root is where it started, and the root is the only place it actually ends. And this is where we go deep every single week to the places that most people are afraid to take you. If you are new here and something in those first 2 minutes landed in your body somewhere below your throat, somewhere in your chest, or somewhere that you do not always let people reach. Subscribe right now because this is the channel where we go deep every week. This is where the conversation happens, the real conversations. I do not want you to miss what comes next. So let's begin now. And let's start by naming what is actually happening, not what it looks like from the outside, but what it actually is. Because the women living inside this pattern, I know you. I have sat across from you in the coaching sessions. I have heard your story. I have felt the specific exhaustion in your voice when you finally say it out loud. What you've been holding, they have words for it. Respectful words, words that the world celebrates. They call it empathy. They call it service. They call it sensitivity, a gift. They call it their calling. And I want to be clear, in some important, real, non negotiable ways, they are right. The capacity to feel what other people feel, to hold a space for pain without needing to fix it or flee or make it smaller so you are more comfortable. To sit inside someone else's storm and to be calm. Not the performance calm, the actual settled, regulated, grounded presence of a woman who is not afraid of hard things. That is a gift, a real one, a sacred one. I'm not here to take that part. What I'm here to take apart is the belief, the deep wired survival level belief that it says that the gift and the womb are the same thing. They're carrying it all, always without bottom, without boundary, without any container for your own experience, that is also part of the calling. It is not. Here's a distinction that I want you to hold. A gift gives you overflow. When something is truly a gift, when you're operating from the real clean soul alignment expression of what you were built to do, it energizes you as you pour out. It connects you deeply to yourself and to the people you serve. You finish a session, a conversation, a piece of content that it came from that place, and you feel more alive than when you started, more like yourself, more present. A womb gives you depletion. When you're operating from the womb, when the carrying comes from the old survival program, running from underneath that gift, it drains you even when the outcome looks beautiful. Even when the client has a breakthrough, even when the community says that was exactly what I needed, you walk away empty, hollow, sometimes even resentful in that quiet and comfortable way. And then immediately guilty for the resentment. Because who are you to feel resentful when you chose this work, when you love these people, when this is your calling? That's guilt. The hollowness, the specific flavor of depletion that no amount of self-care, its strategy seems to touch, that is not the gift operating. That is the womb. And the womb has a name, and it has a history, and it has a very specific in psychological architecture in your nervous system. That means it does not yield to willpower or positive thinking or a new morning routine. It yields to rude work. And that is what we're doing here today. This pattern did not begin in your business. It was built long before you ever wrote a mission statement or created an offer or decided to turn your pain into purpose. It was built in the years before you had a language for it, before you had the perspective to see it, before anyone told you what you were developing in response to the environment that it was going to follow you into every room you ever occupy as an adult, layer by layer, year by year, in response to something real that it was happening around you that required this from you before you were old enough to choose a different response. I want to walk you through three of the most common origins, and I want to ask you something as I do. Do not listen with your head. Your head will want to analyze, compare, contextualize, find the exceptions. Your head has been managing this womb for years, and it is very good of keeping you a safe distance from the truth of it. Listen with your body. Notice what tightens. Notice what makes your breath catch or your chest fill, or that a specific kind of quiet comes over you that happens when something finally gets named that you have been carrying without language. Your body knows. It has always known. So let me tell you, the first origin, you learned that love has a condition. And the condition was that you manage what the people around you were feeling. And I want to be careful here because when I say this, the temptation for many women is to immediately go to the defense or to the people who shaped them to say, but they love me, but they did their best, but I do not want to blame them. And I'm not asking you to blame anyone. I'm asking you to see it clearly because you can hold both things. You can know that the people who shape you were doing the best they could with what they have. And you can also see honestly what the environment they created produced in you. For many women carrying this pattern, childhood, a place where the emotional climate of the house was determined by someone else, a parent who struggled with their own regulation, anger that it could arrive without warning, depression that it can fill the rooms for days, make the air heavy and the silence loud, anxiety that every member of the family felt and unconsciously work around that every single day. And you, the sensitive one, the perceptive one, the one who felt everything, you learned early, young, before you had words for what you were doing. You learned to read the room. You learned to scan constantly, automatically, at a level that it became as natural as breathing. For the signals that told you what the emotional temperature was and what you need to do about it. Whether you need to be quieter or funnier or more helpful or less visible or more present or more perfect. That version of yourself will bring the temperature down. What will you need to give in order to make the environment safe? You learn to anticipate what the people around you needed before they asked. You learn to smooth the tension before it became a conflict. You learn to be a child who is good, who is easy, who did not act to the way the adults were visibly exhausting carrying that weight. And you were rewarded for it, not always in words, in the way that the room shifted when you walked in, in the way people leaned towards you, and the way being the one who made things better became the identity that got you the love, the belonging, and the safety that every child cannot survive without. So the nervous system did what the nervous systems do. It wired the strategy. It tagged making other people comfortable as the pathway to love. And it tagged managing the emotional climate is the definition of being good. And it built at the deepest level of your biological programming, a direct and automatic connection between absorbing other people's emotional experience and feeling safe. You are not caring too much emotionally because you are weak. You are caring too much emotionally because your nervous system learned it in the years when it had no choice but to learn what kept you safe. That caring was love, that caring was safety, that caring was how you earn your place. And now you are an adult with the business and a calling, a community, and the strategy that kept you safe at 7 years old is running your company at 35, and it's time to look at that. The second origin, you were the emotional architect of your family system, and nobody asked you to volunteer. You were assigned that work. In every family, there is a structure, an invisible, unspoken, deeply entrenched structure that determines how each person in the system relates to every other person, what roles they occupy, what functions they serve. And in every family, there is someone who holds that emotional weight of the whole. The one who mediates between the parents when the tension is too high, who checks on the sibling who's struggling without being asked, who absorbs the grief when loss comes and does not add to it by grieving openly herself. Because her grief will be one more thing for everyone else to manage. who senses the undercurrent of the system before anyone else says a word, and quietly, invisibly moves to address it before it surfaces into something that the family has to actually face. In family systems therapy, there is a term for the child who takes on the emotional function of a parent. The parentified child, she almost always the most sensitive one, the most empathetic, the most emotionally intelligent, because she was the best candidate for this job. And she did it because the love in her was real. Because she looked around and saw that someone had to do it. Because she was the one who could see it most clearly. She felt it most accurately. And she responded to it most effectively. She volunteered without knowing she was volunteering because the system needed her to, and because her nervous system was built for exactly this function. But here is what caused her: a child who's managing the emotional weight of the people around her does not get to have her own emotional experience, not fully, not safe, because her emotional experience is perpetually subordinated to the manage of everyone else's. She does not get to fall apart because who will hold the container if she did? She does not get to need because the system is already at the capacity with other people's need and there is no bandwidth for her. She does not get to be uncertain or afraid or lost or grieving in a way that it takes up space because the moment she does, the system shifts. People start to look at her differently, lean on her less, see her as fragile, and she has learned that fragility costs her the role that it keeps her connected, that it keeps her valuable, that it keeps her loved. And so she becomes extraordinary at holding it. And then she becomes an adult, and the role she mastered in her family system does not disappear. It does not dissolve when she moves out or starts a business or starts a new family or builds something of her own. It relocates. It shows up in how she runs her team, taking on to emotional labor of keeping everyone else aligned and comfortable, and how she managed her clients, feeling responsible for their progress, for their breakthrough, from their willingness to do the work, and how she shows up in her community. Always the one who holds, always the one who stays steady, always the one who makes sure that no one in the room feels unseen or unmet. Everyone receives, and she pays the cost silently, invisibly. And she does the same thing in her family, with her children, with her spouse, because that is what she learned. And what she learned is what she knows. And what she knows is what she does. And so she does the work to see it, to name it, and to choose differently. The third origin, you did not start this pattern. You inherited it. And you have been carrying it for women who have been carrying it for generations after generations before you. This is the origin that requires the most stillness to receive because it goes the deepest and it carries the most weight. And it's often one of the ones that when finally gets named, it produces the deepest release because something that has been in your body without language finally finds words and the body finally releases the weight of it. You are carrying grief and patterns and protected strategies that did not begin with you. They began with women before you. The neuroscience and this specifically, the research in epigenetics, the study on how our environment and the experience change the way our genes are expressed and how those changes can be transmitted from a parent to a child across multiple generations is now confirming what spiritual wisdom traditions have always known and what the women who came before us always felt in their bodies but rarely had permission to speak about it. We carry our ancestors, not metaphorically, biologically. The women in your lineage, your mother, your grandmother, the women in your bloodline, they're stretching back into generation who have no names for it. They live in circumstances that it require specific strategies for survival. And those strategies, the hypervigilance, the emotional labor, the self-erasure, the instinct to put everyone else's needs first because their own needs were not safe to have. They were written into the nervous system, into the body, into the very biology on how they experience the world. And that biology was passed down to your mother, to you, which means that pattern you're carrying, the one that it feels so deep, so automatic, so resistant to the willpower and the affirmations and the boundary work, some of it is not even yours. It belongs to your ancestors. Some of them, it belongs to the women who live in worlds where managing the emotions of other people that they were around them was not a choice. It was a condition of safety, of having food, of having protection, having a place. Women who were brilliant and powerful, full of gifts that the world did not have a space for, who learned to make themselves small because small was survival, who learned to carry everyone else's weight because that was the only kind of contribution that the world they live in it will accept from them. Women who loved fiercely and gave everything and never once asked what they needed. And they passed down that love and that resilience and that extraordinary capacity for empathy and attune and service. And they also passed down the womb, not because they wanted to, but because they did not know any other way. And so you wake up in 2026 with the business, with the platform, with the calling, with opportunities that those women could not have ever imagined. In their most expensive dreams, they did not imagine to have that. And your nervous system is still running that program. In that program, it was written for the world they survive. It's still scanning for threat. It's still putting everyone else first. It's still carrying the weight because the body believes that is how you earn your right to be here. And I need you to hear this. You are not carrying too much emotionally because something is wrong with you. You're carrying too much emotionally because you come from women who had no choice but to carry. And you receive their pattern along with their blood, their love, and their prayers. And you are the one in this generation, in this moment, with the tools and the language and the resources that they never had, who gets to set it down, not abandon them, not disown what they built or diminish what they sacrificed. Set it down with honor on their behalf. Because what the world will not allow them to do, you have the authority, the access, the calling to do it now. And when you do, when you break this pattern in your own nervous system, in your own identity, in your own body, you do not just heal yourself. You send the healing backwards through the lineage, through the women who could not heal it themselves. You give them voice, you give them rest. And then you send it forward to every daughter, biological or spiritually, who will watch how you live and decide what is possible for her. That is not a small work. That is the most sacred work that is. There is so much power there to give voice to your daughter, to your generation, but also to forgive and to give voice to the women that they gave you more for you, because now you get to be their voice, their power. Before I go into the science, I need to stop here because one of those three origins just touched something in you. I know it did. I can feel it in the way I always felt it when the room gets quiet and in a specific way. And I want you to mark this moment, not with the mental note, with a declaration. Comment right now. Comment the words, I am the operating system. Not because it's a catchphrase, but because it's true. Because it is the most important thing I can say to you in this moment. You are not the womb. You are not the pattern. You are not what it was passed down or wired and installed into your nervous system survival for years. You are the one who holds the authority to rewire all of it. You are the operating system. Claim it right now. claim it in the comments. I read every single one of them comments. And when you type those words, something in you will shift. That is more than a comment, it is a decision. And decisions are where everything begins. Type it now and let's keep going. I want to take you into the science because I believe with everything in me, the understanding what is happening in your brain and in your body when you absorb other people's emotional weight is one of the greatest acts of self-compassion you can offer to yourself. Because when you understand the mechanism, when you can see the biology of why this pattern is so automatic, so persistent, so deeply resistant to everything you have tried to change with, you stop calling yourself weak. You stop calling yourself too sensitive, too much, too emotional, too caught up into other people's business. You start calling yourself what you actually are, a woman with an extraordinary attuned nervous system running into an outdated survival program that is in your body, that it was built for far more than just survival. Let me show you what is happening. In the 1990s, a team of researchers studying the motor cortex of monkeys made a discovery that changed the way we understand the human capacity for empathy. They found that when a monkey performed an action, reaching for food, a specific cluster of neurons in the brain activated, expected. What was not expected when that monkey watched another monkey perform exact the same action, the identical cluster of neurons activated. Not similar neurons, the same ones. The same neurological firing pattern, whether the monkey was doing the action or witnessing. They call them mirror neurons. And as the research on the human brain evolved, as the technology for imagining the living brain become more sophisticated, science began to find evidence of a similar system in us, a neurological architecture whose entire function is to dissolve the distance between your experience and someone else, to make you feel what they have feel, not as a figure of speech, is a neurological event. When you sit across from a client who is in pain, when you hear the tremor in their voice as she describes what she has been carrying, when you watch her eyes fill up, when you feel the weight of her story begins to move across the space between you and her, your nervous system is not an uninvolved observer. Your mirror neuron system activates. The pain circuits in your brain begin to resonate with hers. The anxiety or the grief or the fear that is moving through her nervous system begins at the neurological level to move through yours. And the research consistently shows. And here I want to speak specifically and directly to the women in this room, that this system tends to run more actively, more sensitive, and with more persistent in women than it is in men, which means the women who are already called by their history, by their gifts, by their wounds that they turn into their work to be the ones who feel deeply and hold the space and sit inside other people's pain without flinching, their mirror neuron systems are likely running at the level of sensitivity that most people never experience. You are not too much. You are neurologically extraordinary. And your neurological gift is running without a container. Here's the difference between a woman whose empathy flows and a woman whose empathy accumulates. A regulated nervous system, one that is resourced, that is not already operating in chronic low-grade survival mode, that it has their own emotional material process in moving rather than held and compressed, can receive someone else's pain, hold the space, honor it, stay present in it, and then release it. Like water moving through a vessel. It comes in, it moves, and it goes. A dysregulated nervous system, one that is already at near capacity with its own unprocessed material, already running the old survival programs, already working overtime to manage everything that is responsible for before any session, any conversation. Any piece of content begins cannot move what it receives. It holds it because holding is the only thing it was ever taught. And so it accumulates layer by layer by layer, session by session by session, message by message and message, conversation after another conversation, client breakthrough after another breakthrough, family crisis after family crisis, until the vessel is so full that what is supposed to flow, it has nowhere to go. And the tiredness becomes chronic, and the creativity begins to thin, and the passion, it starts to feel like performance. And then you start to go through the motions of the work you love. Well, the part of you that it loves it is buried under that, so far under the weight of everything that you're holding that you cannot find her. This is what science calls compassion fatigue. What I call it is a dysregulated nervous system trying to operate beyond its current capacity while carrying the weight that it was never assigned to you. I want to add something here that the science alone cannot hold because I believe it. And my faith is not separated from my coaching. It is the ground underneath all of it. That we are not just biological systems, we are spiritual ones. In every major spiritual tradition across human history, not one, not two, but everyone understood something about this that neuroscience is now finding language for. We are not sealed. We are not isolated units of individual experience sealed inside separate bodies. We are interconnected at a level that it goes far below the conscious mind, far below the thoughts that we can observe, far below the emotions that we can name. What happens in you affects what happens in me. What I can carry enters the space between us. What you're holding shapes the atmosphere of every room that you walk in. The mystics across centuries called this a spiritual interconnection. The field between souls, they share ground of being. The science are calling it co-regulation, mirror neuron, the extended nervous system. Same truth, different language. And the implication of that truth, whether you receive it through the science or through the spirit, is this. You were designed to be connected to other people's experience. That is not flow. That is the mechanism of healing. The capacity to feel what another person feels, to genuinely enter their experience with them rather than observing it from a managed distance. This is the thing that it makes healing possible in the room. It is the thing your clients need from you. It is the thing that it makes a transformation real rather than transactional. The problem is not the connection. The problem is the absence of the inner ground that allows the connection to move through you without consuming you. The women across history who could hold the most suffering, the mystics, the healers, the mothers of the poor, the women who sat with the dying and the broken and the lost, they were not the ones who felt less. They were the ones who had to cultivate the deepest inner ground. A rooted system that it went so far down into the truth of who they were, who they belonged to, that the storm could move through them without uprooting them. That ground, that root system, that is what we're building today. Not because it makes you feel better. Through it, it will. Because without it, you cannot do the work you were born to do at the level that you were born to do it, for as long as you were born to do it. I want to be direct with you now, because this is not only a personal conversation, it is a business one. And I think one of the reasons this pattern persists in so many gifted women for so long is that the cost is invisible. It does not show up as a single catastrophic failure. It does not announce itself. It accumulates. A slow erosion and a quiet diminishment in the thousand and small ways that a woman who's running on borrowed source gradually becomes less than the fullness of who she was built to be. Until one day she looks up at the business she built from her calling and does not recognize herself in it. Let me show you what is actually costing you. It is costing you your creativity, your authority, The work you do, the content that genuinely changes people, the ideas that they are original and powerful, unmistakably yours, the coaching that it goes to places that no one else takes their clients, the work that does not come from the survival brain, that it comes from the highest function regions of your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for vision, for nuance, for creativity, for the capacity to hold complexity and meaning and possibility at the same time. And that part of your brain requires resource. It requires a nervous system that is not in threat response. The kind of internal spaciousness that only exists when you are not simultaneously processing the absurd emotional weight of everyone else's experience. When you come to your creative work already full of what you observe from the client at 9 a.m., in the family dynamic at noon, in the community message at 2 o'clock, in the midnight voice from the client who's struggling. You do not have the resource. Your creativity brain needs to operate at the level your calling requires. And the work that it comes out that it depletes that place is smaller than you are capable of. Not because you are less talented, but because the system that it produced the talent is under resourced. It is costing you your energetic authority. There is a quality to the presence of the woman who is fully resourced, who walks into a room physically or virtual from a place of genuine overflow, who shows up to her client, her camera, her community from a well that is genuinely not performative, full. The women she serves can feel it in their bodies before she says a single word. They feel it in the settledness, the clarity, the non-anxious presence of a woman who's not managing her own depletion while simultaneously trying to hold the space for theirs. And they feel the difference when it's not here, not consciously. They will not name it, but their nervous system will register that. And what they receive when you show up depleted, even when the words are right, even when the framework is solid, even when the session covers everything that it needs to cover, is a diminished version of what they came for. They came for a transmission, the one that only happens when the woman in front of them is genuinely, bodily, is spiritually full. That transmission is the most valuable thing you offer, and it requires you to be full to offer. It is costing you receiving. This is the cost that lives underneath everything else. The one that it drives the income that it never reaches the level that it should. The pricing that it stays lower than the value. The offer that it will finally create sustainability that it never quite make it there yet. The client that it should be a yes who becomes a maybe. The revenue month that approaches a new level and then something goes back. A woman who has organized her entire identity around giving, around being the one who holds, who serves, who carries, who never needs, has a receiving womb. A deep, often invisible, biological level block to letting good things land onto her. Because receiving requires something that chronic carrying systematically dismantles. The genuine embodied nervous system level belief that you are allowed to have, not just deserving, allowed, safe, permitted, that the abundance arriving is not a test or a mistake or something you will have to give back. And when that belief is present, when the old wiring says your value is in your giving, not your having, the abundance cannot land the way it's supposed to. It flows back out as fast as it comes in, or it does not come at all, or it comes with a specific anxiety attached to it, the low grade, relentless sense that it will be taken, that it's not really yours, that you need to do something with it immediately to justify having it. That is not a strategy problem. That is a womb problem. It does not get resolved with a new pricing strategy. It resolves when you heal the part of you that it does not believe she's allowed to receive. Like this video right now, not as a transaction, it's an act of agreement with yourself that what I just named is real and it deserves to reach every woman who's giving everything she has to everyone around her and still not letting herself have what she has built towards. Hit the like button, be the reason that she finds this conversation. Let me be specific because the clarity about what you are carrying makes it possible to actually deliberately, with intention, set specific things down. There are four things I see in the women in this community that they're carrying they were never theirs to carry in the first place. The first thing, other people's feelings about your expansion every time you grow, every time you raise your prices, every time you invest in yourself, every time you step into a bigger level of visibility, every time you say yes to your calling at a new level of commitment. There are people in your life who have a feeling about it. Sometimes that feeling is genuine support, and that is a gift. Receive it. But sometimes this is the one that I want you to look at. The feeling is something else. Discomfort that it calls in self-concern. Resentment that it shows up as critique. Distance that explains itself as being busy. In women with this pattern, women whose nervous system were wired to read the room, to manage the emotional climate, to observe the discomfort of the people around them before it became a conflict, absorb those feelings. They carry the discomfort of the people who are uncomfortable with their growth. They shrink to not be a threat. They slow down to stay in reach. They qualify their wins before they share them. They dim the expansion just enough to keep peace. They sacrifice the calling to manage the feeling of someone who has a feeling about the calling. And it does not feel like sacrifice. It feels like love, like sensitivity, like not wanting to making anyone else feel left behind. I want to say something to you about that. Other people's feeling about your growth are not yours to carry. They never were. The emotional response of another person to your expansion, their discomfort, their fear, their jealousy dressed as feedback, their smallness in the face of your bigness, that is their work, not yours. Your work is to grow into what you were built to become. Their work is to grow into the relationship with your becoming. You can do that with love, with patience, with genuine care for the relationship that it matters to you, but not at the cost of your calling. Because the calling was not given to you to be negotiated away in exchange for another person's comfort. It was given to you to be lived. The second, the outcome of your client's transformation. This is the one that I need you to sit with it inside this moment because it's counterintuitive and it lives very close to the center of your identity as a coach, as a healer, as a woman who built her work around transformation. You are responsible for the container, for the expertise, for the presence, for the sacred space in which healing can happen. You are not responsible for what the client does with that space. You are not responsible for her willingness to do the work, for the pace at which her nervous system allows the change, for the choices she makes outside those sessions, the ones that either honor the work or bypass it, for the courage she accesses or does not access or any given Tuesday. That is her work, not yours. But women with this womb, women whose worth was wired to be measured by how well they make other people feel better, slip almost invisibly from the role of being the guide into the role of being the rescuer. And a rescuer does not hold the space. A rescuer carries the outcome. She lies awake thinking about the client who is not moving. She takes personally the client who does not implement the exercise. She works twice as hard in the session as the client does, pouring more, compensating for resistance with her own energy, trying to carry the transformation across the finish line through sheer force of investment because clients' healings feels like a reflection of her worth. And then she burns out. While the client, who was never required to pick up her own weight, does not transform, because transformation cannot happen when the coach is carrying everything. The most profound act of faith you can offer your client is to trust her process, to hold the space with everything you have, and then let her do what only she can do. Your gift is the container, not the carrier. Set down the outcome. Trust the process. Do your work. Let her do hers. That is not cruelty. That is the deepest respect you can offer. Number 3, the grief of the women in your lineage. This is the one that surprises women when it gets named. And it's the one that, when it lands, often produces the most profound release, because something that has been in your body, enormous, wordless, finally gets to exist in a language. You have been carrying grief that it does not belong entirely to you. Grief for the women before you who were never got to build what you're building, who never got to stand in authority of their gifts and offer them to the world without apology, who never got to want more and have what they wanted to be honored, who never got to be seen fully, specifically in all their complexity and power, beauty, and be loved because of it, rather be despised. That grief lives in you. And the guilt that arrives when things go well, the specific, irrational, persistent guilt of who I am to have this, and the sabotage that shows up right at the threshold of a new level. The invisible hand that it pulls you back just before you cross the territory that one of the women before you ever got to occupy. In the lower grade sense, that wanting the life you are building is somehow a betrayal of the women who had so much less. This is epigenetics and the body. This is generational transmission, not of trauma. It's a concept, but it's a specific biological nervous system patterns that they were written in response to the lived experience of the women who came before you. And here's what I need you to hear. You honor them by setting it down, not by making your life smaller than theirs, not by refusing the abundance they pray you will have one day, not by keeping yourself in the struggle, because leaving the struggle feels like leaving them. You honor them by becoming what they were not allowed to become. You honor them by building the thing they dream about it in the moments when dreams were all they had. You honor them by refusing to let the limits of the world to be your limits. Grieve what they did not get to have. Grieve it fully. Grieve it specifically with your whole heart, with your whole body, in all the tenderness you carry. And then stand up and build a thing for all of you, for them, for your children. Number 4, the identity of being the one who never needs anything, the strong one. I want to speak to her directly right now. You became the strong one at some point in your family, in your friendships, in your community, in your business. You were assigned that role, or you chose it, or more likely both, in a way that it was so seamless. And the role became your identity. The one who holds it all together, the one who does not fall apart, the one people call it in the crisis because she will have the answer. She will be calm. She will hold the space and find the words. She will make it possible. Feels manageable. She is extraordinary and she is exhausted, because the strong one does not get to be held. The strong one does not get to be the one that it falls apart, who does not know who is lost, who is grieving, who is terrified, who isn't over her head and needs someone else to reach in and help her find her way back. Because the strong one's role requires her to have none of those things ever. And so she builds a self that does not need, a self that it has no visible seams, not accessible soft place, no needs to take up space and room. And that self is performance. a magnificent, convincing, deeply exhausting performance. And underneath it, right underneath, just beneath competence and capability and the steady presence that everyone around her depends on her, is a woman who has been desperately silent for years, longing to be the one who gets to be held for a minute, to be the one who does not have the answer, to be the one who says, I am struggling. I don't know. I need you. And it has it safe. I'm talking to that woman right now. You are allowed to be held, not someday, not when the business reaches a certain level, or the season gets lighter, or you have given enough to everyone else. Do you finally earn the right to have something for yourself? No, right now. Now you're allowed to be held. Now you're allowed to have needs, to voice them, to let someone else meet them. That is not weakness, that is humanity. And the version of you that it finally puts things down, the strong performance, and allows herself to be fully human, fully needing, fully receiving, fully present in her own experience without managing how it looks. That woman is more powerful than any performance ever produced, because her power comes from a real place, not from the womb, from the ground. And I want to be clear about something before we go into the practical dimension of this. Setting down what is not yours to carry is not abandonment. Is not becoming someone else who does not care, who has built walls, who is unavailable to the people that she loves and serves. Is becoming someone who can care sustainably, deeply, from a place that replenishes rather than depletes. It is the becoming of the woman whose presence is a genuine gift. Not because she's pouring out what she does not have, but because she is giving from what is genuinely, consistently, non negotiable, full. Let me show you what that actually requires. The first thing you must develop the practice of asking, is this mine? This is a foundational skill, and it is simple enough to practice in real time. In the moments when the weight arrives, every time you notice yourself absorbing something, every time you leave a conversation carrying something that it was not yours when you arrived, every time you feel responsible for something that it belongs to someone else's journey, pause and ask the question, is this mine? Not, is this real? Not, is this important? Not, shall I do something about this? No, is this mine? When you leave a session feeling heavy, is that yours? Or is it what you observe from that room? When you feel anxious about a family member choices, is that anxiety your genuine response to something that it requires your action? Or are you carrying the anxiety that they have not yet metabolized in their own body? When you feel responsible for a client's outcome, is that responsibility actually yours to hold? Or has the womb convinced you that taking it on is what love looks like? That releasing it is what abandonment looks like? Ask the question, honestly, every time. And when the answer is no, when you can feel it in the body, that what you're holding was never assigned to you, breathe it out. Literally, breathe it out. Give it back. Not in drama or declaration, quietly in the body. With love, with the understanding that the weight returning to his rightful owner is not cruelty, it's truth. The second thing, build the container, not the wall. This is the piece that most conversations about this pattern gets wrong. They teach boundaries, they teach limiting setting, they teach how to say no and how to end conversations and how to protect your energy. I am not against any of those things. But if your nervous system is dysregulated and the root of the pattern is wired survival strategy in your biology, a boundary script will not hold, because you cannot discipline a dysregulated nervous system into regulation. You have to heal it. And healing requires building something internal that most women and the pattern they have never had the permission to build a container, not a wall. A wall shuts everything out, and you will lose the gift along with the womb. A container holds what is yours and release what is not. It allows the connection to flow. The genuine empathetic is spiritually alive connection that your clients and your community and your calling requires without allowing the weight to accumulate. And it's the internal ground that allows you to be fully present with the pain without being consumed by it. Building it, it looks like this: a re-entered practice after every session, every difficult conversation, every piece of content that it requires you to go deep into that place. Something physical, something that is yours. Breath work, movement, prayer, stillness, washing your hands with the intention of releasing what you observe, is stepping outside and feeling your feet on the ground and breathing until you feel that you have returned. Simple, non-negotiable every time. Not because it is self-care, but because it's a maintenance of the instrument you use to do the work. A morning practice that is yours before you become everyone else. Not elaborated, not performative, real. Something that it says, this is mine. Feeling my own well before I offer anything to anyone else. In the regular, consistent practice of moving your own emotional experience through your body, not analyzing it, not journaling about it in a way that it stays in the mind, moving it, shaking it, crying, dancing, walking fast, breathing deep, allowing yourself to be in your own experience without any audience, without performance, without management, so that it moves rather than calcifies. Build a container as the most sacred and serious business practice you have, because the instrument is the business and the instrument requires care. And number 3, make a decision about receiving. The pill to carry is receiving it. And receiving is a decision before it's a feeling. You will not feel ready to receive. The womb does not release because you feel ready. It releases because you decided clearly, specifically, non-negotiable, that you are no longer available for the version of yourself that it can only give. It starts with the compliment. Let it land all the way. Do not redirect it. Do not deflect. Do not qualify it with what you still have left to do or how much you still have to learn. Let it enter. Say thank you. Feel it in your body for a full breath before you move on, and build from there into investing in yourself at the level you invest in your clients, into pricing your work at the level that it honors what you actually produce, into building the structure that it gives back to you financially, energetically, spiritually, not just the structures that it takes from you in service for everyone else's transformation, but receiving as a practice. And every act of genuine receiving rewires the old story that it says that women like you are only permitted to give. That story ends when you decide that it ends, and you can decide it right now. Let me show you someone. She wakes up in the morning and she does something that it used to feel impossible. She checks in with herself before she checks in with anything else. Not her phone, not her messages, not her to-do list, not her calendar, with herself, her body, her spirit, what she needs, what is moving in her, what the day is asking of her from the inside before she looks at what it is asking from the outside. So she tends to that first with the same intentionality and the same non-negotiable commitment she once reserved exclusively for the people she was caring. She is still the most empathetic woman in the room. Her mirror neurons did not disappear when she healed it. Her attune did not close. She still walks into a space and knows within moments in her body what is moving beneath the surface. She's still the woman whose presence makes people breathe again, who's attuned to create safety, whose capacity to hold the hard places without flinching is extraordinary. But she no longer confuses holding space with absorbing the weight. She can sit with the client in tremendous pain, fully, warmly, is spiritually present with that pain. And when the session ends, she releases it. Not because she stopped caring, not because she built a wall between herself and the people she served, but because she built a container that allows caring without consuming. She asks the question every time, is this mine? And when the answer is no, she breathes and she releases. She gives the weight back to the rightful owner with love, without drama. She has grieved the woman in her lineage, really grieved them with her whole heart. She has been inside the grief at what they did not get to have. And she has also stood up on their behalf and built the thing that they were praying for from generations ahead. She charges what her work is worth, not because she finally pushed through the fear, but because the receiving womb finally healed. Because somewhere in the real embodied nervous system level work, she stopped believing that her value was in her giving and start believing that she was allowed to have what the giving produces. She is not the strong one anymore. She is strong, genuinely. The kind of strong that only comes from having going through something and survive it at the root. Not the kind of strong that is performing for the benefit of the people watching, but the kind that it does not require an audience because it's not for them. But she is also the one who asks for help, who says she does not know, who lets the people in her life who love her actually reach her, not just the polished version of her, not just the coach and the leader and the woman with the answers, but the real one, the one who has needs, the one who is sometimes afraid, the one who is building something extraordinary and will like sometimes, just sometimes, not to be the only one who knows how heavy it is. She has allowed herself to be held. In that specific, vulnerable, courageous act of allowing changes everything. Because the woman who can be held is the woman who can hold others without losing herself. Because the woman who can receive is the woman who can give without depletion. Because the woman who knows how to be full is the woman who has something real to pour. Because after you hit the next milestone, she is the woman you become when you make the decision. And I believe that decision is available to you today, right now, in this moment, before this video is over. Not someday, right now. Right now is your moment. If you are still here, if you have been in this with me from the beginning and you felt something move when I named the origins, when I described what is costing you, when I painted a portrait of the woman who has done the work, I want to say something to you before I close. You did not find this video by accident. I do not believe in accidents. I believe in divine timing, in spiritual alignment, in the specific grace of a moment when the thing you have been carrying along finally finds language. And someone says it out loud in a way that your body can finally receive it. This is that moment for you. And what you do with it matters. There are two women watching this video right now. The first woman feels everything that I described. She will recognize herself in the origins, in the cause, in the caring. Something will shift in her chest. Something will crack open. She will be moved. And then she will close this video and pick up everything she was holding before she pressed play. Not because she doesn't want to change, but because the weight is familiar. Because sitting down is unfamiliar. Because the nervous system, even when it's exhausted, even when it's running on empty, will always reach for the familiar over the unfamiliar. Because familiar is safe, even when safe is slowly killing you. The second woman will do something different. Not because she's braver, not because the fear is smaller, not because she has it all figured out, because she has decided. She has decided that she is too called, too gifted, too important to the people she's meant to serve. To keep spending herself on what it was never hers to carry. She has decided that the woman in the portrait, the one who is regulated and receiving genuinely full, is not a fantasy. She is the next version of herself. She's available now. And I want to be the woman who walks along the side, the second woman. And if that is you, if you felt something in your body, as I described the work of going to the root, of healing the pattern at the level where it actually lives, I want to hear from you. Not in a group setting, not in a program built for masses, directly. You and me. Because what I do in my private coaching practice is not strategy work, it's root work. We find what you are carrying, where it started. We heal what needs healing in the nervous system, in the identity, in the generational patterns that we were passed down before you had a language to see them. We build a container that allows you to give freely from genuine overflow without sacrificing yourself on the altar of everyone else's growth. And then from that healed, regulated, genuinely resourced place, we build a business that it matches the calling. The women that I work with are not struggling to figure out their next move. They know their next move. They are powerful, deeply gifted, unmistakably called. They are simply done letting the womb be the ceiling of what they are able to build. And if that is you, go to therealnextlevel.com and apply today. Tell me what you've been carrying. Tell me how long. Tell me what you have tried and you still feel stuck. I will read it personally. And if this is the right season for us to work together, if the alignment is real and the timing is right, and you are genuinely ready to do the root work, you will know it in the first conversation. So go now, not after you finish one more thing, not when the season feels more open, now, because the woman who is ready to set it down does not wait for a better moment. She decides that this is the moment. Go to therealnextlevel.com. And if this episode gave you something today, if it names something you have been carrying without a language, if it moves something in you that it was ready to be moved, leave that in the comments. Tell me which origin was yours. Tell me what landed. Tell me what changed. Because this community is real. And the conversation does not end when the video does. It continues in the comments and I'm there, reading, responding, present. Subscribe if you are not already here. This is the work that we do every week. The conversation that it goes all the way to the root. And I do not want you to miss what comes next. Share this with the woman in your life who has been strong for everyone for too long. The one who holds everything together and never gets to ask what she needs. The one who will never go looking for this conversation on her own because she is too busy carrying everyone else. Send it to her. Be the bridge. I love you. I see you. Not the version of you that it holds all together, the real one. The one underneath all of that carrying. She's not broken. She was never broken. She was just never given permission to put it down. That permission, it has always been yours. Trust me, it has always been yours. You are the operating system. Act accordingly. I will see you on the next one. Yellow diamonds in the